Feldspar here. I was wanting to go through some of my setup how I heal on my Paladin. I'm set up in my garrison to kind of give it's a little quieter here, so um, I guess let's start with talents. I I've primarily used Bestow Faith. I haven't really tried out the others. It's just makes things. I know it's going to heal in about 5 seconds, so it's not bad for uh, doing what I need to do. So a lot of times I will put Bestow Faith on myself, and I will actually use Light of the Martyr to heal other people, because I know I'm going to get healed in a little bit. Um, it 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 I know I'm making a trade off here, so sometimes you'll put Bestow Faith on a tank or something. If you know somebody's going to be taking damage, then like a tank, it works out okay. If you're not sure who's going to be taking damage, but you know somebody's likely going to be taking damage, then maybe put it on yourself and then use Light of the Martyr. I, I I've seen some guides that say you know don't bother with Light of the Martyr. Um, to me it's I like it a lot. It's a little bit more powerful than Holy Shock. So there is a 572 crit Light of the Martyr, 545 with Holy Shock. So it's a little bit stronger, but it's also costs less mana. So you have to be careful when you're using it. Um, just I use it a lot to save people. If they're really low, or just to bring everybody up to uh, a decent amount, so I can start healing in a normal manner. um, it's the stuff I've read that says, hey, don't even bother using it. I think that's wrong, because I think there's great places to use it. And all you're doing is you're trading. The whole idea behind healing is you're trading your mana for health, and if it costs less to um, heal somebody, then that can be an advantage. And sometimes you only have a few seconds to get somebody healed up enough to before they take damage. One thing I've noticed is some tanks will oftentimes they'll be taking a lot of damage. Not so much in my raid, but in like dungeons and LFR, you'll get a pug tank that's new, or maybe they just have, maybe they're really good, and they just pull a whole lot of stuff, but sometimes they pull too much and they're taking a lot of damage. So you're hitting Bestow Faith on them, you're hitting Holy Shock, and you could Flash of Light constantly, and they're still not going to get up. So sometimes Light of the Martyr will help get them raised up, to at least till you feel comfortable. One of the other talents I have is Judgment of the Light. So this just says anybody that's attacking the target is going to get healed for a certain amount. So you can, I don't know if it's showing here. I'm getting about 10k heals. Actually, that's probably from my Aura of Mercy. So Judgment of Light is healing me for about 9,400, which isn't bad. Oftentimes I see that like in our normal raid, it stays on for the entire duration. It doesn't drop the 40 stacks before I can reapply it, or before the time runs out. In LFR, where there's like 25 people, sometimes I see it drop off pretty quick, and in fact I can't even reapply it because it's still on cooldown. Um, other things, I use rule of law, and I'll get into that in a little bit about how I use it. I could probably tell you now, but I've got it macroed. Instead of actually clicking on it, I just have it macroed to my bestow faith, and that way, and I'll show you that macro in a little bit. I find it a lot of times, rather than worrying about it, actually clicking on it or binding a keybind to it and having to think about it. It's got like a 10-second cooldown, and you've got 2 charges of it, and then bestow faith is a 5-second cooldown, and I find that I can get 2 bestow faiths in, or a couple of bestow faiths, and it's, for the most part, it's up 2/3 of the time. So the way I use it, so it's, you've got 2 charges with a 10-second cooldown, 30-second recharge. So it's always, for the most fights, it's always going to be up. I'm trying to go through this quickly, I guess. I used to use Holy Prism when we first started out raiding, and Holy Prism is a pretty good for just like an all around throughput type thing. In fact, I would probably say it probably is a little bit better than Holy Avenger. One thing that I did find, when we kind of started getting into heroics, and then in some fights too, is I just needed another cooldown to get through the fight. And Holy Prism is great, but if nobody's taking any damage, then it's not really gonna help you anything, because it'll be available, but nobody's really taking any damage. So you're just sitting there waiting to use it. Whereas some of the fights, you'd have like one big damage phase, and you need to try to get everybody back up. And I tend to have some other cooldowns. I've got Aura Mastery, and then I've got Avenging Wrath, and I've got my Artifact, which I don't really know how much my Artifact heals for, but it tends to do a lot, for everybody in the raid. So I usually combine that with Avenging Wrath and do my Artifact, and so and then I might try playing around with some of these other talents. I tend to use Judgment of Light. It's just kind of easy. Usually you have one boss, just apply it to the boss, and as people hit it, they'll get healed. And then Beacon of the Lightbringer. I think this is probably a really good default one. I saw a really well geared Paladin that was like way out healing me in LFR. So I think he had, I want to say he had Beacon of Faith on it as his talent. Now, he may be into Mythics, and or may have been into Mythics. So once you get into maybe a little bit higher content, you tend to maybe play around with stuff. So it's kind of like me. Early on, I was using Holy Prism, and then I figured that hey, on these tougher fights, I need something a little bit beefier to crank out the heals. So those are mainly the talents. Let me go through some of the macros. So I talked about Beacon of Faith. Let's see. So, bestow faith. So what I do is I have it macroed. So whenever I target over something, I will apply the bestow faith. But I also, if you noticed, my rule of law, uh, uh, one of my charges dropped off. So if I do that again, it drops off. One thing I've found this to be helpful on is the dragon fights. We have the tanks separated out and the groups separated apart. But with when I cast bestow faith on one of the raid members or myself or the tank, and I get that rule of law, so it increases the range, and I find that I can reach actually the other, quite a few of the other group, and if the tanks are tanking in such a way, I can get to both tanks and maybe even dispel something on the other group if I need to. So I have to say, rule of law is probably one of the best things you can get, and for convenience, I would macro it in like I have here. So I think that's the most of the stuff that I wanted to talk about. I got I had a really nice macro with my that other talent. I can't even remember what it is. Holy Prism, but I'm not sure which one it is here. So probably this one. Yes. So I played around with it for a while. If you want to use it, this is probably the macro that works best. I want to say that's it. Anyway, I found that this tends to, if I've got a bad person targeted, it would actually cast it on that on the boss or whoever you're attacking, and then it spreads out from there. If I had my mouse over a party member or myself, then it would heal that person and then attack, hit all the other things. So Holy Prism is probably pretty good for dungeons and stuff, because you can kind of help out on the damage. In a lot of cases the dungeons are a little bit more, you don't have to kind of get into panic mode and hit a cool, something like a Holy Avenger and stuff. So for dungeon raiding, or dungeons, Holy Prism might work out a little bit better, and plus you can kind of use it to heal and do damage at the same time. So that might work out. Let's see what else. If you want to talk about typical rotation and stuff, I will, like on tanks or anybody, cast bestow faith, and like I said, you could cast it on yourself and then heal people up with Light of the Martyr, and by the time it expires, you'll gain some health back. Also, Light of the Martyr, you can cast it on people, and a lot of times you'll be using your Light of the Dawn, and your Light of the Dawn is going to heal yourself as well. You're going to have other healers in the raid that are kind of doing other splash healing that's going to heal you up. So don't be shy about using Light of the Martyr. it can be very effective. It's also a lot more mana efficient. And I was noticing there was a talent there that would actually help it out as well. So I may play around with that just to see how it works. But look at my other videos. You can kind of see how I'm doing things. A lot of times when you're moving around, and Holy Shock is on cooldown, and people are about to die, the only thing you can do is Light of the Martyr. And that's the other thing too is, so here, let me get myself at max mana, max health. Another thing you can do is if you hit Divine Shield, you can just crank out those Light of the Martyrs, because you'll heal everyone else up, and you won't be taking any damage. One other thing, when I first started out, all I was doing was hitting Flash of Light for the most part. I wouldn't hit Holy Light for anything, because let's face it, here with my haste and everything, Holy Light is 2.4 seconds. Flash of Light is 1.44 seconds. So an extra second. Casting time is seems like an eternity to me, and they kind of heal for roughly about the same amount. When I do use Holy Light, though, is usually when I get I don't know what the proc is here, Infusion of Light. Anyway, if I get that drops my Holy Light down to 0.959 seconds, and Flash of Light is still 1.44. So you almost want to use Holy Light when you get an Infusion of Light. There we go. So it's a lot faster, and you want to be. I kind of weave those in. Plus, Holy Light is slightly more mana efficient, so that's one of the good reasons to run it. If you're running in a group where you're kind of light on healers, or that's when you really want to be, you want to make sure that you're not overusing mana. A lot of the raiding that we've been doing, we've got 3 healers in our kind of a 10 or 12 man group, is what we tend to run in, and that seems to be about right. We did one time heal Xavius, whatever you want to pronounce it, with 2 healers, and that was pretty tough. And I was out of mana at the end of that fight, and luckily I think we had maybe one person that may have died in that, but other than that, it was actually pretty challenging and a lot of fun at the time. So I can't think of anything else. Let's see. There is, I think, if you can get your artifact, there's a Protection of Tur trait. So Aura Mastery also increases all healing received to party or raid members within 40 yards by 15%. I would try to get to that trait as much as possible. I don't know. Aura Mastery to me feels like almost like a tranquility in a way. When I see a lot of people down on health, here I'll hit it here in a second, and let me get my health down here. So when I see a lot of people down, I hit that, and it just kind of, ticks on everybody. Um, so here, yeah, not a whole lot on me here, but um, it's good when everybody is down quite a bit. Um, and then I use Avenging Wrath and my Tears Deliverance to kind of do a similar effect, just to kind of get everybody up as much as possible. So those are primarily your uh, cooldowns that you use. And then if you want to just really crank out the heals, I hit Holy Avenger and then just crank away on stuff. The other thing, if you're healing your beacon, uh, you'll get some mana return on that. Um, so there's some advantages to healing beacons. I tend to, like in LFR, I will usually pick the ones that have the lowest health, just to beacon. That kind of, yeah, I just figure that they're going to either be taking more damage um, than everyone else. So I know I've gone way long here, but I just wanted to be thorough as much as I can. And yeah, let me see if there's anything I've left out. I do, just real quick, I do use, it's called Need to Know. And one thing you can do is you can set up these bars that show you different spell effects. So you can set that up. So I've got it for Judgment of Light, and then you can also specify okay, it's a debuff. Unit to monitor is the target, and you can do that on spell cooldowns as well. I've got it set up for my cleanse. Um, I was finding on Helya, we have 3 healers, and there's 3 people getting hit with the Taint of the Sea. So you need to dispel those people. Well, one thing I was noticing, I don't think it's going to work here, but one thing, if you actually, here's an example. So if I cleanse the training dummy, well, there's nothing to cleanse off him, so it doesn't cause my cleanse to go on cooldown. Well, a lot of times in that Helya fight, you cleanse somebody, and you think you've cleansed them because basically another healer got to him before you, but right at the same time, and you assume that you've cleansed them, but actually you haven't, and your cleanse is still ready to use. So you need to go try to cleanse somebody else. The other thing would be to just keep trying to cleanse people until it's on cooldown. So, which probably not a bad idea anyway. But I have mine to where when my cleanse is on cooldown, I'll have the bar pop up very similar to this Judgment of Light bar. And so if I see that, and I've made these especially big just so I can be focusing on my feet, making sure I'm not standing in stuff or moving out of the way, and in my peripheral vision I can see that it's either on cooldown or something like that. So the other thing is I tend to use the default UI. I just move my little character icons to to the center here, so I can kind of keep an eye on myself, keep an eye on my target, and a lot of times I will be attacking. I might even be in melee range. Um, if there's not a lot of healing that needs to be done, or I can do some just a minimal amount. Um, I'll come up and do a little bit of damage. Usually not so much in raids. I do that probably a little bit more in dungeons. I might do that. Um, I think that's about it. Gear wise, I've been kind of lucky. I've got two um, uh, legendaries so far, um, and I've gotten some pretty good lucky drops for some of the other dungeons and raids. So I'm sitting at, as you can see, 873. One thing that you kind of want to, as far as stats, uh, crit and mastery tend to be your best stats to get. Especially crit, because when you cast something like Holy Shock, you can get an infusion of light, which makes your holy light, so much faster. And I've noticed that I'm looking on Ask Mr. Robot. Versatility is not as is still pretty good, and it's probably not a bad all-around stat. I've got some other pieces of equipment that I think are actually higher eye level, but Ask Mr. Robot, actually makes them even down pretty far on the list. So they're inferior. So I've got something that's 10 eye levels higher, but yet crit and haste. Haste is just not really that great. So you kind of have to. I would go by what Mr. Robot says, and pick some of those things out. But sometimes, like here, I've got a here's my my newest lucky drop was this Titan Forged cloak. So sometimes if it's high enough eye level, you can it's probably pretty good. So yeah, so actually, now that I look at this, I'm wondering if these Dragon Bone wrist clamps might be better, because they have a decent amount of mastery, but haste is kind of almost like a useless stat for holy paladins. At least that's what all the websites seem to say. So I tend to trust those. But I think that's about it. Other than that, just do things that are useful for the raid. Keep an eye on the the healing meters. If you're lagging behind a lot of the healers, then look to see what maybe you're doing something wrong. It I always like going into LFR, because you'll get some other paladin healers, and you can kind of compare what you're doing with what they're doing. And that would be another thing, is get something like Recount, so you can kind of look at, well, what are they casting most often? How powerful are their casts? Are they better geared than you, or not? Sometimes I will find somebody that's that looks to me that they have lower gear, but for whatever reason they're doing something different and they're topping the or beating me on the meters. So take a look at that and see what maybe they've got something a little bit different, and maybe they're doing something better, um, and that's something you need to emulate. So don't always assume that you're correct in everything. I know I'm not the best at this. Otherwise, I'd have all the mythic stuff down, and and I certainly don't. So just this should be enough to get you started. And I've gone probably way longer than I really need to, but I would definitely do some dungeons. The other advantage of doing some dungeons, and I would even do LFR as well. There's some pretty good gear upgrades in there, but LFR is kind of hit or miss. Sometimes you got stupid people in there all the time that stand in fire or whatever. So it's great practice to get you better. So don't look at it as a waste of time necessarily. You're going to get some gear upgrades possibly, or you'll get some artifact power, which is going to help you out. So just main thing is have fun. If it's really frustrating you that bad, then yeah, maybe you ought to think about playing a different class or something. But anyway, I've gone way too long, but I hope everyone's has a great day, and talk to you later.